What's good, YouTube and Twitch? We're live to both. The same channel that brought you bad ban list takes has actual ban list predictions mixed in from chat and myself. So I'm going to go down the list of cards that chat has actually brought up, say their prediction and then mine against that, as well as some of my own predictions. And the very first lead off into this conversation, if you get the tone of how this is going to go, was, oh, Red Reboot and Call by the Grave are perfectly fine to come back to 3. I think Called by is actually a more interesting conversation, but we just got over a card that was literally turn-long floodgates that ended up being chanted for to be banned. Now, people do hate back row decks, or they love them, but Red Reboot is a turn-long floodgate against an entire, basically, third of the card pool, every single purple card. You need an Omni Negate to deal with this in a format where we already have 3 Lightning Storms and a Harpy's Feather Duster. Absolutely not should Red Reboot be coming back to 2 or 3. If anything, it should be at 1 or 0 in my opinion. Call by the Grave is very strong when you go first. It allows you to continue up your combo against most hand traps, unless it's like Nibiru that doesn't send itself to the graveyard, but then it still floodgates it for another turn in case they draw multiple or would have use for them. So Call by the Grave actually becomes a 2-turn long floodgate. It can backfire on the person with, like, you hit an Ash Blossom, then you have Ash Blossom, but usually it just goes in favor of the person who wins the dice roll and makes it even stronger. I struggled understanding that hit for a while, but now I super understand, especially when somebody does draw their one of, it feels so freaking lucky. Now, I do think, here's my hot take of the ban list, for the first time in I think history, but I actually have to go back and look at the first, like, limit list, I think we will see the semi-limit list cleared, and a little bit of hero love come our way with Malicious. It can go to 3. I think it's perfectly fine. Heroes were thriving, they were topping regionals, they weren't topping YCSs, and they were doing pretty good as a rogue deck with Maui to 3. I think it's perfectly reasonable to put this to 3 again, and let hero players do what they want to do. I get it's a problem in other decks for naturally overlaying 2 6s for Beatrice and helping Beatrice do her things, but now other decks get to use Beatrice and do that anyways. I just don't see it as big of a problem in today's game. Now, everybody's been asking about this card. You can't avoid this one. Electromite Pendulums, let's go! Are we gonna see Triff's Tears again? I've got sad news in my prediction. I think if Konami was going to peel this off the list, it would have been before New Metal Foe support, before Sulfa Chords to help it sell. Yes, it's sitting there on shelves right now, but, like, I don't think they would do a late peel off. I think it would be before. By the way, a lot of these predictions are going to be based off of the ban list actually happening after the Remote Duel YCS. So that event could still put new decks out there that may have been more problematic than we thought, but I don't think Konami is going to ruin people's cards. They've gone out, spent their money, and gotten ahead of time, unless it's a super minimalistic list ahead of time to do very minor tweaks and fixes, and then the next update would probably be a much bigger one. But I don't think we're going to get one ahead of the Remote Duel YCS. I think it will be after, but either way is possible. So we're even predicting how the ban list will happen and when it will drop here. LP comes up into pretty much every conversation for how to hit Dragon Link. I do predict this finally gets banned. I think it joins the brother on the ban list. Argapane! I think it's about time. That resource from the deck is the perfect way to hit it, because when I look at the other cards, stuff like Striker Dragon ends up mixing in to other decks in the future. Same with Quick Launch, because Burst of Destiny's themes starts to go back to Rockets. I think they'll start hitting Dragon Link more slowly, piece at a time. They already hit the Collapse Servant, Weaver Buster combo stuff. They've gone over towards that, and I think they will slowly continue to whittle away at it, like they slowly went after Salomon Great Multiplist, like they slowly went after Sky Striker Multiplist. So I think you'll see little hits to Dragon Link along the way. Now, speaking of Pendulums, I do think there is some hope in the future. I could easily see Double Iris Magician coming off the list. Konami often likes to, whenever they see something's not a problem, peel it all the way off, and I would hope for that. Skull Crobat Joker came up in conversation. I don't think they'll unban it. I think this could go straight to 3 personally, but I don't think Konami will be doing that this list. Also, the Danger Engine came up from chat. This doesn't care if it's banished or not. A lot of people mentioning Flunderies and hoping for macro, D-Fissure, weird stuff. I think when it comes to the Danger Engine, it's oh so powerful. Everything's an upstart, and if you were to peel these back to 2, 2. It ruins my dream of no semi-limit list for a little bit in the game, and I do think there's a use for the semi-limit. People think I just want to abolish the semi-limit list. I think actually the OCG did an amazing job putting cards like Tenki on there. I think Tenki's the perfect example of a card that it's okay to slow down the power of, but doesn't need to be at 1. With these, though, these are upstart goblins that self-replace, that do crazy things. I think they definitely need to be checked and balanced for their free shots, and the Danger Engine was so crazy. People cheered for it getting banned, but then people start to miss things that took over the meta and used to be their oppressors and then want them back. Speaking of that, Sky Strikers came into the conversation. Ban drones and put Engage to 1. You solve the problem. Dude, Engage is a recurable pot of greed that searches out multiple things. Like, no, you do not need this with triple Hayate, and I think Rei needs 4 more years in school, aka the ban list, so that your weird playmats of her make a little more sense versus her age, okay? The next card up comes from the OCG list, and that's Trident. I think people are only thinking of this now because it got hit in the OCG. The OCG list doesn't always translate to the TCG list, and I don't think it will here. And then Zeus comes up. I really want Zeus to go to 1. I would pray for it to go to 1, hope for it, but Phantom Rage still needs cards to sell, and while 1 would still help it sell in the Megatons and stuff, I think it would slash its price to under a box, and there's this healthy balance of actually wanting a single card or multiple cards in a set to make a set look strong, where it's worth more than the value of a box if you pull a single card. That is a successful business model, and with Zeus, I feel like towards Phantom Rage, that's the card. They're not done selling him. They're going to probably reprint him in the Megatons or another set, but probably the Megatons, with Phantom Rage being there, and then you have the Tri-Brigade stuff being the next backup value, and it's not really close to it. Speaking of Eternal format, we do have Mirage Stalio. People want this back in chat. I don't think you're going to get Salmon Great Help. I don't think it's time yet, and I think they're actually trying to restrict more cards like this. Like, Isolde's been out for a long time, right? Halka Fibrex, they limited the other cards instead, but you see so many cards that are enablers from deck go on the list. That's why I think LP will make the list, and I think they don't want as many cards like this in the game, even though they keep making them. A lot of these cards end up on the list. Colossus, the self-walking floodgate, this could come off the list, I suppose, but I don't see it happening. The Thunder Engine being splashable, let's say they start hitting the Guard Dragons, the Dragon Link, that kind of stuff, then you're going to see, if this peels off, a mix of Dragon Link, Thunder Engine once again. Like, it's just going to happen, like history would repeat itself, so I don't think it's time for Colossus. I personally go back and forth on that one, but I just don't think it's the time. Now, the revolving conversations that have happened from before. Alistair, should it be hit? Should it be Meltdown? Should it be Invocation? Oh, that conversation really cooled down a lot. People didn't bring up Alistair till 45 minutes into the stream, impressively. First time in a ban list conversation. Maybe it's just beaten down into the ground, but I think with Alistair, it's impressive at the beginning of the format, and then it phases out. It's like the new Gladiator Beast. It's the new thing that you can play as an engine, go back to, kind of fall back on as you figure out what you want to play after a list, and sees the most popularity then. I don't think any of the pieces are going to get hit personally, but if they would, I think the proper hit would probably be Invocation to 1 to really hurt things, because you would have multiple Meltdowns and Alistair himself, and I still think, like, if you hit the Invocation down to 1, like, Dronelock starts to hurt this deck a lot more too. Shadol Schism and Winda was the other revolving conversation heading into this. I don't think either will be hit currently. I think they'll be selling a Schism upgrade in the Megatons. I think that Winda is pretty powerful, yes, but you're able to out it with many cards in the game like Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplet. There's multiple ways to take care of it. Konami probably sees it that way. It is restrictive. It's a self-protecting floodgate, and I think Schism's the problem card in this combo because it enables it so much more to be played as a miniature engine and an afterthought from the extra deck, but the card still exists here as a newer power card, and I still think they intend to resell that. Oddly, coming up a ton today in the conversation is Chaos Space, and I do kind of get it after thinking it over. I really like Chaos Space conceptually. I do not think it needs to get hit, but whenever you end up using its search, it's a 2-for-1 initially and fixes itself. Master Dinnerflax actually brought up that point. I started to think, okay, so no matter what, even if you get stopped by an Ash Blossom, the second effect makes it like kind of a 2-for-2 situation or 1-for-1 situation. Like, it's not so bad. It's always going to replace itself within the combo, but it's still a hard OPT and then hurts your other draw cards. You don't want to see it again in the same turn. I think Chaos Space is perfectly fine, but I do get people looking for unique hits on Dragon Link right now. One of the other top decks people want to hit is Drytron, and I don't think they would be hitting Drytron directly. The only hits I could see possibly happening, which I don't see them hitting it further right now, would be Benton to 0 or Eva down to 1 or 0. I just don't see them hitting the deck, though. I don't see them going direct at it right now, and I don't see them going and applying further hits after already having wasted the time to do so. Well, it's not a waste. Benton to 3 would be insane, but what I'm saying is that, like, it was very early in the history of it getting hit, so, like, doing it again would feel partially weird at this course in its history. What's up? Did you say something? Alright, next up we have, speaking of the things that enable stuff from deck, a lot of people want either Samorg or the Barrier Statue. No, we're not banning the Wind Barrier Statue out of all the Barrier Statues because it gets enabled. You would probably hit the Enabler. Samorg is pretty crazy at this point in the game. I don't think it's on Konami's radar personally. It's kind of like Scrap Raptor ending up being a common, weird enough. It either means they're hyper aware of Scrap Raptor and they plan to hit it, or they were just not aware that Scrap Raptor was that hype. That's why I don't think you'll see Harp Horror off the list, even though I personally want it off the list. I think scrap combos deserve a little consistency, and if there's anything in the Eternal format, I'm not the biggest fan of Orcust. I would like to see Gearsu get some action in with Harp Horror and also Scrap Raptor and do its thing, but I think the Eternal format's kind of in the past for now, as nostalgic as it is. Also brought up was Infernity Archfiend. Oh, it could come to 3 right now. We don't have Max C like the OCG. Also, my Max C prediction is stay at 0 right now. The OCG and TCG seem extremely different on that. But I see this staying at 1 for now, even though there's new cards on the horizon and stuff. I feel like the TCG office is very particular about certain archetypes. Chaos Space with Mali at 3? I mean, yeah, maybe I am a little bit crazy, mad lad, giving way too much. But will the hero players really go towards Chaos Space, or people start playing Malicious at 3 and like a deck like Dragon Link? I don't necessarily think so, chat. When it comes to some other cards here, Gold Sarcophagus was mentioned. Oh yes, we put Gold Sarc to 3 with Necroface at 3. Are you kidding me? I'm too damaged by Necroface to accept that into my reality. So yes, I think at this point you probably could peel Gold Sarc off, but I don't think it'll be happening, and I hope it doesn't happen. I don't want to relive my old meta days of getting Necroface looped. And finally, the good old conversation that keeps happening: Dragoon versus Red Eyes Fusion versus Verte Anaconda. Oh, Verte is the enabler. It should be gone. No, no, no. Nobody else should suffer. Red Eyes Fusion goes, and you should be able to try to make Dragoon. Oh no, hit Dragoon and then leave the Red Eyes Fusion for the Red Eyes players. Dude, I think Konami's not done selling Dragoon after seeing that price tag in the TCG. I think it'll get a reprint somewhere before they even hit it. It's not the same problem in the TCG as it was the OCG either, but I do agree that I dislike when a ton of decks end up with the same piece of the end board through a means, and the top decks usually use it the best, although a ton of rogue decks are using Dragoon right now, and it's a frustrating card to play against. I do not see this list hitting Dragoon, but we'll wait and see. I just think Konami will see its price tag and say, oh no, let's sell that again before we do anything with it. That being said, I believe that's most all the cards. The final conversation, access code talker. The you cannot respawn clause is very strong on this, although you still get a window of after it's summoned, and it gains that attack before it can get its pop off. You can hit it with stuff like Droplet or Imperm or other cards that could deal with it. I think access code talker gets really beefy, is really strong, can clear boards, can end up going through things, but I think like the Build-A-Board Workshop actually supports a card like this. And how many times do we see a pretty busted Link 4 in history and people quote that it should be banned? I started to even think that at one point Boral Sword should be banned, and that it was such a powerful OTK piece with a little bit of self-protection. It can't be destroyed by battle, like, and then it has a flip to defense. Oh, it's so crazy. It's completely phased out of our metagame. You know what else people used to want banned? Apollosa. Oh, and Saryuja. And there's all these other Link 4s that seem so powerful for their time, and they just phase out pretty darn naturally. I think access code talker, it's hard to see right now where that would phase out with such a clause going for it and how insane it is, but I don't know that it really needs to be hit, and I don't think Konami will be hitting it until, again, they cash in and they sell some more as a Megaton reprint. That's where we are at with this ban list. It's in July, so you're before Megatons, before, you know, Eternity Code, the Rise of the Duelist reprints. Konami's going to be interested in selling selling a lot of cards, and you gotta think with Konami brain. Does anybody else have anything to add from Open Chat towards this conversation?
Talk about mine.
Oh, Mystic Mine? Yes, Mystic Mine to 0. That's my prediction, Smile, even though it will be completely wrong.
Also, what I was gonna say with Skull Dread stuff, OCG has Skull Dread at 1, so you could like make the 4, get your draw 4, but you can't like abuse it like I do, and you try to like draw your entire deck and draw like a bunch of floodgates and stuff. Just same thing like Curious Griffin, but they didn't hit Curious and Griffin, so I don't know, like, does one Skull Dread, it does matter, but should it happen?
Yeah, I think with Skull Dread, like, when it's in card creation, Billy literally told me the first time he read it, this is a Pokemon card! And I was like, dang, Billy, you kind of hit that on the head. But, like, it's funny that, like, yes, it's played mostly in degenerate decks now, but, like, cards played in degenerate decks don't really get hit until they become a meta problem, like Into the Void was. Into the Void was a card that, like, needed to get checked and balanced for some time, but it wasn't until, like, Pendulums really started using it and bringing extra attention to it that it actually got dealt with. Spell counters, yay. But, I think that's about it. I made it, I'm in the video, yes, you are. Thanks for joining live if you were here. I love to see you guys in the live stream. Friday night is war. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy these live conversations done like this. No editing involved, and this should go up tomorrow from the stream. Thanks for watching, everybody.